Hey everyone, I'm Kevin with Victory 4x4. In today's video, we're going to install our engine, transmission, and transfer case skids on our 4th Gen Tacoma.
This skid has been revised to come shipped in 2 pieces, so it'll require some assembly before it gets installed on the vehicle. You'll need to use 3 of the supplied 1/2-inch carriage bolts and 3 1/2-inch flange nuts to assemble the skid, with the front portion underlapping the main portion with this large cross member mount. With the hardware installed, go ahead and tighten it up and then continue with the rest of the installation.
We're going to start out here under the front of the truck. If your truck is equipped with a factory skid, splash guard, whatever the case may be, that's obviously going to have to be removed for the new skids to go in place. So go ahead and get that out of the way. And then we've got our engine skid here. I'm going to start with the easiest part by installing our oil filter access door, which is just going to bolt in with a couple 5/16 stainless button head bolts right here into this front cutout. You'll then reach over the top and install these serrated flange nuts. So you've got one here front and center, and then one down here on the bottom. And to tighten that up, you'll just need a 3/16 hex. From there, we're just going to work front to back with our hardware. So starting in these outside corners, you're going to need the large factory bolts that would have held your factory toe or recovery points out on these outer mounts out here. So if those are still in place, go ahead and remove those as well, and then keep that hardware. We'll lift this up and line up the 4 slotted holes on the skid and start these 4 bolts. Now, to answer a question some of you may have, yes, this will install with your factory bumper in place. The way you're seeing it here is with our front blitz prototype at the time we're filming this video installed. So a little sneak peek there. Expect to see more from that in the future. And then we'll move back down here to the 2 round holes kind of just behind that access door location and install 2 M8 hex head bolts that we provide into factory threaded holes down here. For these, you're just going to need a 13mm. Of course, you'll have to line up the slotted holes down in here and then carefully thread these in. As always, we're leaving these just a little bit loose until we get all of our mounting hardware started. As we move to the back of the skid, you've got 4 more slotted mounting holes here and then 4 more of those factory threaded holes into this factory rear cross member. These again are flanged M8 hex head bolts, and if we were just installing the engine skid at this time, you would simply thread in and start all 4 of these, and then you could work your way back through and tighten up all your mounting hardware. Since we're doing this as a skid system and we're now going to install our transmission skid, I'm going to pull this back out. We have enough hardware in at the front that it's going to support this engine skid for now. So I'll get our transmission skid up on this jack, and then when we slide it in place here, it's going to use these same 4 mounting holes, and it's going to overlap, sliding in on top of this engine skid between it and this cross member.
If you're installing the hybrid version of this transmission skid, it will come to you in 2 pieces and will require some pre-assembly before installing on the vehicle. You'll slide the 2 halves together and then fasten them to each other using a 1/2-inch carriage bolt and flange nut at each of the 3 locations. Once the hardware is installed, go ahead and tighten it up and finish with the rest of the installation.
And once you get your trans skid up here, it becomes pretty self-explanatory how it's going to install and line up. But just to point it out now, the tapered or narrow end of the skid goes toward the front of the vehicle. Once you get it up here, you can see that the 2 kind of innermost holes are slotted. Those are going to line up with the 2 forward-most bolts in this 4-hole pattern here at the back. So you can have these 2 started while you slip this into place and get it lined up. Once you work at that and get it lined up properly on those back 2 holes, you'll just install your remaining 2 bolts here. And then again, since we're leaving our hardware loose till all of it is in place, we're now going to jump to the back of this trans skid. At the back of your skid, it's kind of the same deal here. We're also going to be installing a transfer case skid, so I'll walk you through this now, and then we'll kind of pull it back out and get that skid in here. So with each skid, both the transmission and transfer case skid, you're going to receive a pair of these spacers. Regardless of how you're doing this, you only want to install one set of these, so one per side. Basically what this is going to do is act as a spacer due to the step nature of this factory cross member. So you'll slide it in above the rectangular cutout hole here. You can then install your 1/2-inch carriage bolt, which is going to pass through the spacer and all the way up through this cross member. And then on top, you'll install a serrated flange nut. And then again, do the same thing over here. So then once you have your transfer case skid in here, it's gonna lay over top of the transmission skid. You have the spacer all the way on top of that between it and the cross member. You'll then take that 1/2-inch carriage bolt and then reach over the top of the skid like I am here with my left hand and install the nut up on top of that cross member. You can then do that same thing over on the other side. To install the back of your transfer case skid, you're going to be installing a nut tab through a factory hole in the side of the frame. So I have both the driver and passenger side here. This one is going to be the passenger side, so it steps kind of up and out, so you have a tab to hold here on the outside of the frame. The rectangle hole you're looking for up here is going to have a hole plug in it from the factory, so it's just going to be a plastic plug that you have to pop out with some sort of pry tool. Can even just be a flat screwdriver. To identify this on the passenger side is right behind this factory ground cable, so that's pretty easy, and then you can just go straight across to the driver's side and find that same location. To slide this in, you're just going to feed it in with the pre-installed nut up toward the top. You can then let that slide down, and then you're going to be going forward with it to line it up with the back hole out here in your transfer case skid and the factory non-threaded hole here, which is why we have this nut tab. You can then take your 1/2-inch button heads and thread them up into the nut tabs to secure the back of the skid. Once that's in on both sides, all of your hardware is in for your whole skid system, and you can now line everything up and tighten it up. So essentially you're just looking to make sure your hardware is even in the slots from side to side over here to center this up, as well as the edges of both skids where they overlap. You can then check your clearance to the exhaust back here, which you should have plenty of room, and then grab a 5/16 hex to tighten up these button heads. On the front of this TK skid, back of the transmission skid, where those two carriage bolts are installed, ideally you'll have a 3/4-inch ratcheting wrench to get up over top of here and tighten those nuts, which obviously you're not going to be able to see from here. You may be able to get the driver's side with a powered ratchet or air ratchet. However, the passenger side gets a little bit tighter and you will likely have to switch to a wrench. Moving back forward, you'll need a 13 mil to get the 6 M8 hex bolts along the bottom here. And once you've got these center two tight, we do provide hole plugs for these round hole locations as well. And you can finish off your install with a 17 mil to tighten those 4 factory bolts along the front edge. So that is it for this skid system install. As always, if you guys have any questions about this or anything else we offer here at Victory 4x4, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can always email us at info@victory4x4.com or call us at 269-459-8447.